They laughed at him in public, but didn't know his truth. It was a quiet afternoon in the city. Cars moved slowly, people walked quickly, and the sun was high above. On one side of the road, a man walked alone. His clothes were old and dusty. His shoes were broken. His beard was long, and his eyes looked tired. Nobody knew his name. Nobody cared. People looked at him with strange eyes. Some laughed, some whispered, and some just ignored him. He was walking through a rich neighborhood. The houses were big, clean, and beautiful. The people wore shiny watches and expensive clothes. But this man, he didn't belong there. At least that's what people thought. He stopped near a small park. There were children playing and mothers sitting on benches. He sat quietly on one corner, looking at the kids with a soft smile. He didn't speak. He didn't move much. He just sat there, calm, silent, and peaceful. But soon, things changed. A man from one house called the police. "There's a strange man near the park. He looks like a beggar. Maybe he's dangerous." In a few minutes, a police car arrived. 2 officers stepped out, one tall and strong, the other short and serious. They walked towards the man. "Hey, what are you doing here?" the tall officer asked loudly. The man looked up slowly. His voice was soft. "I'm just sitting, watching the children play." "Do you live here?" the short officer asked. "No," the man replied. "Then why are you here?" "I'm not hurting anyone. I just wanted to rest for a while." The officers looked at each other and laughed. "You think this is a hotel? You can't just walk into a rich area and sit wherever you want," the tall one said. A small crowd started to gather. People took out their phones, recording everything. Some laughed. Some whispered again. The man stayed calm. His eyes were still, kind. He didn't argue. He didn't get angry. "Show us your ID," the officer said. The man took out a small wallet. It was old and torn. He slowly gave them a card. The short officer looked at it. He laughed first, but then stopped. His face changed. His eyes became serious. He looked at the man, then back at the ID, then again at the man. He whispered something to the tall officer. The tall one laughed too, until he saw the card. Then he stopped laughing. "What is this?" the tall officer said. "This can't be real." The crowd didn't know what was going on. One boy recording asked, "Who is he?" The officers didn't answer. The tall officer put the ID in his pocket and said, "Come with us." "Why?" the man asked. "Am I under arrest?" "Just come with us. We need to check something." The man stood up slowly. He didn't fight. He didn't ask questions. He looked at the children one last time, then walked with the officers. They put him in the car. The crowd watched. Some people clapped. Some people shouted, "Good job, officers!" But inside the car, everything was quiet. The short officer looked at the man through the mirror. His face showed fear, not anger. "Sir, why didn't you tell us who you are?" he finally asked. The man looked outside the window and said in a low voice, "You never asked. You only saw my clothes." The car moved slowly down the road. Behind them, the people were still laughing. But very soon they would not be laughing anymore. Because what they were about to discover would shock the whole city. They called him a beggar, but he was more than that. At the police station, the tidy man sat quietly on a wooden bench. His hands rested on his lap. His face was calm, but his eyes showed pain. Not fear, not anger, just deep, silent pain. The officers stood near a desk, whispering. One of them held the ID card in his hand. "Is this real?" the tall officer asked. "It looks real," the short one replied. "But this name? I've heard it before." They both looked at the man. He didn't say a word. He was looking at the floor, lost in thought. Other officers in the station walked by and stared at him. Some laughed quietly. One young officer pointed at him and said, "He looks like a mad man. Probably sleeps on the streets." A few joined in. "He smells like garbage. Why did they bring him here? Just throw him out." The tall officer said loudly, "All right, sir. Tell us what you're doing in that rich area. Don't waste our time." The man looked up slowly. His voice was still soft, but steady. "I was just sitting. That's all." "Why not sit in a shelter? Or a bus stop? Or somewhere with people like you?" another officer said mockingly. The man didn't reply. Instead, he reached into his pocket and took out a small, folded photo. He held it in his hand gently. It was an old picture. The corners were torn and the colors had faded, but the faces in it still shined with life. A woman, a little girl, and him, looking different, younger, happier. No one noticed the photo. One officer came closer and said, "What's that? A begging license?" A few laughed again, but the short officer didn't laugh. He was staring at the ID card again. The name on it felt familiar, almost important. Suddenly, he walked to a computer, typed something quickly, and searched the database. His eyes widened. He clicked one link, then another. The screen showed articles, news reports, and images. "Wait, this can't be right," he whispered. The tall officer walked over. "What is it?" "Look at this." He turned the screen. On the monitor was a news photo from a few years ago. The same man wearing a uniform standing on a stage receiving an award from a government officer. "He's not a beggar," the short one said. "He's a hero." But back on the bench, the man still sat alone, treated like nothing. A young constable walked over and dropped a bottle of water beside him carelessly. "Here, for you, in case you feel thirsty after begging all day." The bottle rolled to the ground. The man picked it up quietly. He didn't speak. He looked at the picture in his hand again, and for a moment his eyes became wet. He whispered something under his breath. A name, maybe, or a prayer. The short officer now walked slowly toward him. His steps were careful. His face was serious. "Sir, I think there's been a mistake," he said softly. The man looked up. "A mistake?" he asked, his voice still calm. The officer nodded. You were Major Adil, right? The same one who saved the school in Northern Valley during the attack?" The whole room went quiet. All the officers turned. Someone dropped their pen. Major Adil. The name hit them like thunder. The tall officer stepped back, shocked. The younger ones looked at each other in disbelief. "Wait." "What?" one of them whispered. "That's him?" The man, Major Adil, gave a soft smile. He nodded once. But what happened to you, sir?" the officer asked. "Why are you like this now?" Adil didn't reply. Instead, he slowly stood up, still holding the photo. He looked around the room, the same room where he was laughed at, mocked, disrespected. And then he said, "Because when I wore a uniform, people respected me. Now without it, they don't even see me as human." The room stayed silent. No one laughed anymore. And deep inside, everyone felt the same question rise. How could a man like him fall so far? And why did he choose this life of silence and pain? The answers were still hidden, but they were coming. They didn't know his name. Carried power. The police station was silent now. No one was laughing anymore. The man they had mocked just an hour ago was someone they had once seen on TV. A name they had read in the newspaper. A man they had saluted, maybe even prayed for. Major Adil, the same man who once stood with pride in a clean uniform, standing tall among leaders, helping people, saving lives. But now, The same man sat in front of them, wearing dusty clothes and broken shoes, with pain in his eyes and silence in his voice. The short officer who had checked the ID sat at his desk, still looking at the screen. He couldn't believe what he was reading. Article after article told the same story. Major Adil, the silent hero of Northern Valley. He saved 42 children alone, awarded the Medal of Honor for bravery, mysteriously disappeared after tragedy. The officer clicked on a video. It was from years ago. A news reporter was speaking in front of a burned school building. Behind her stood soldiers. One of them was Adil, calm, focused, and strong. The reporter said, "If it wasn't for Major Adil, these children wouldn't be alive today." In another video, a child, maybe 10 years old, said, "He carried me on his back through the fire. I thought I would die, but he didn't let go." The officer paused the video and turned to look at Adil. Now he didn't see a homeless man. He saw a warrior, a protector, a man who gave everything and asked for nothing. But why? Why was he living like this now? The tall officer finally broke the silence. "Sir, if you were a hero, then why did you disappear? Why didn't you come back to your home, your people?" Adil looked at him slowly. He took a deep breath and spoke. "Sometimes, when you lose the people you love, home doesn't feel like home anymore." He opened the old photo in his hand. A woman, a little girl, smiling. "My wife and daughter," he said. "They died in a road accident, just 1 month after I returned from that mission." No one said a word. "My life changed in one day. I didn't want applause. I didn't want awards. I just wanted peace." He looked down. "But I couldn't find it in the world I used to live in. So I walked away. I started living on the streets, helping quietly, without name, without rank." The young constable who had thrown the water bottle earlier looked away, ashamed. "Another," officer whispered. "So all this time, he was helping people in silence, while we laughed at him." The short officer nodded. "People like him don't stop being heroes. They just stop talking." At that moment, a journalist entered the station. She was there for another report but noticed the tension in the room. She looked at Adil, then at the officers. "Who is he?" she asked. "Once respected by all, now forgotten by everyone." Before the world saw a man in broken shoes and dusty clothes, they saw someone else. Major Adil, a name that once echoed in newspapers, speeches, and hearts. Years ago, Major Adil was not just a soldier. He was a leader, a protector, and a light of hope for many. People respected him, not because of his rank, but because of his courage and honesty. He didn't speak much, but when he did, people listened. His words were simple, but powerful. He never wanted fame. He only wanted to serve. The mission. That changed everything. One cold winter morning, a call came from the Northern Valley. A group of armed men had taken over a school. Inside there were 42 children and 3 teachers. Everyone was afraid. No one wanted to take the risk. But Major Adil stepped forward. "I'll go," he said, "even if I go alone." And he did. The mission was dangerous. Gunfire echoed through the mountains. But Adil moved with focus. He didn't think about himself, only about the children. For hours, he fought, rescued, protected. He carried wounded children in his arms, shielded them with his body, and didn't stop until every life was safe. When he finally came out, carrying the last child on his shoulder, the world watched in awe. That image was printed everywhere, on TV, in newspapers, and in people's hearts. They called him a hero, a lion, a guardian angel, the honors and applause. He was awarded the highest medal for bravery. There was a grand ceremony. Ministers, generals, and reporters came to shake his hand. "You've made the nation proud," one officer said. He stood on the stage, smiling softly, holding his daughter's hand. She was proud, looking up at her father like he was a superhero. His wife stood in the crowd wiping her tears. It was a day of light. Cameras flashed. People clapped, but no one knew that the light wouldn't last long. The tragedy, just 1 month. After the mission, Major Adil and his family were driving home from a visit to his hometown. It was late and the roads were dark. A truck speeding on the wrong side crashed into their car. The accident was brutal. His wife and daughter died on the spot. He survived, but something inside him broke that day. A part of him was gone, forever. The hero of the nation became a man of silence. He stopped attending events. He refused interviews. He left the army quietly. No one could understand why. He just disappeared, people said. Maybe he couldn't handle the pain. And they were right. The silent goodbye one day, he packed a small bag, took only a photo, and left his home. He didn't tell anyone. He didn't leave a note. He walked out of the world of medals, uniforms, and loud respect into a world of silence, simplicity, and struggle. He didn't want people to feel sorry for him. He didn't want to be known as the man who lost everything. He wanted peace, real peace. So he became nameless. He started helping people quietly, buying food for hungry children, guiding lost travelers, saving lives during floods, and praying in small mosques where no one knew his name. And whenever someone asked, "Who are you?" he would just smile and say, "No one important." But now, years later, after that one arrest, the truth was starting to return. The journalist who met him at the station began searching. She found old interviews, old photos, and even an award list with his name on top. She wrote a blog. "The Hero We Forgot. Where is Major Adil now?" The blog went viral. People started asking questions. Where is he? Why did he leave? Why didn't we see his pain? Respect returns in silence. Somewhere in the city, Adil walked slowly near a small hospital. He saw a man fall on the road and rushed to help. He gave him water and called an ambulance. People around were surprised. One man said, "You're not just any poor man, are you?" Adil didn't reply. He just looked at the sky, touched the photo in his pocket, and smiled. He didn't need fame again. He didn't want applause. He just wanted to live quietly, help deeply, and love silently, the way his daughter used to smile when he told her bedtime stories. And maybe that was enough. The day he lost everything. Major Adil was once a man full of strength, purpose, and pride. He was respected by his team, loved by his family, and trusted by the whole nation. But life has a strange way of testing even the strongest hearts. It all changed on one rainy evening. Adil was returning from his village with his wife and little daughter. The road was wet, and the sky was dark. His daughter was singing softly in the back seat. His wife was smiling, holding his hand. They were talking about planting flowers in the garden when they got home. Suddenly, everything went silent. Out of nowhere, a speeding truck came into their lane. The crash was loud, violent, and unforgettable. Adil opened his eyes slowly. His head was bleeding. He looked around, confused. The car was upside down. The glass was shattered. The sound of rain was mixed with something worse. Silence. He looked beside him. His wife wasn't moving. He turned to the back. His daughter's eyes were closed. Blood ran down her forehead. Adil screamed. He crawled out of the car, tried to lift them, tried to shake them, but nothing worked. They were gone. Right there, on that broken road. His world ended. The days that followed, the funerals were quiet. Many officers came. They saluted. They offered flowers. Some reporters came too. They called it a tragedy, a loss to the nation. But for Adil, it wasn't just a tragedy. It was the death of his soul. He sat beside the graves for hours every day. He didn't speak to anyone. He didn't eat properly. He didn't sleep. His medals, his awards, his uniform, nothing mattered. Now, one night he packed a small bag. He took only 3 things: the photo of his wife and daughter, a prayer mat, and a letter he never sent. He left the house, left his job, left everything. No goodbye, no message, just silence and pain. The letter. No one read he had written. The letter a day before he left. To the people I served. I am thankful for your respect and love. But I can no longer wear this uniform with pride because my heart is no longer whole. I need to disappear. Not for fame. Not for attention. But because I must learn how to live without those I loved most. Major Adil. He never posted the letter. He kept it folded inside his prayer mat, hidden like the tears he never showed. The new life. He began walking from city to city. No destination, just movement. He slept under bridges, ate at small, roadside stalls. Sometimes kind people gave him food or water. Sometimes he had nothing. But even in this life of struggle, his heart stayed kind. He helped whenever he could. He lifted heavy bags for old men, helped children cross roads, donated the little money he had to a sick woman once. People saw him as just a poor man, maybe crazy, maybe strange. But no one saw the hero hidden inside. No one knew the stories his eyes carried. No one asked why. He whispered names while staring at the stars. But he kept going, quietly, faithfully. A visit to the past one day. He returned to the old school he had saved during the mission, the school where 42 children were once trapped. The building was repaired. Now, bright walls, clean windows, happy laughter. Adil stood near the gate, watching from a distance. A teacher noticed him and came closer. "Can I help you, sir?" He smiled gently. "No, I just came to see if the children are safe." "Do you know someone here?" He looked at the children again and said softly, "Once I knew all of them." Before she could ask more, he walked away. The teacher looked at him as he disappeared down the road. There was something about him, something sad, yet peaceful, like a man who had lost everything and still chose to give love to the world. The man everyone walked past was a hero all along. The blog written by the young journalist was spreading like wildfire. The forgotten hero, Major Adil. It had pictures of his old missions, clips of him carrying children from a burning building, and one powerful sentence. He didn't vanish. He gave up everything and chose to live among us. In silence. People couldn't believe it. Is this the same man we walked past on the street? I think I saw him near the bus stand last week. Why didn't anyone tell us before? Suddenly, thousands were searching. Social media was full of his name. News channels picked up the story. People were emotional, confused, even angry at themselves. How could such a brave man, once celebrated, honored, and respected, be sleeping on cold streets without anyone noticing? The journalist decided to find him again. The search begins. She visited the police station where he had been taken weeks ago. The officers remembered him well. He didn't want any attention, one of them said. He just wanted peace. They gave her the name of a shelter where he was last seen. But when she reached there, he was already gone. One man said, "He comes and goes, never stays long. He gives food to others but barely eats himself." Another said, "He prays alone at night, cries sometimes, holding a photo." The power of truth soon, old students from the school he once saved started posting stories. One girl wrote, "Major Adil carried me through fire when I was 6. I owe him my life." Another boy wrote, "He held my hand and told me, 'You're safe now.' I never forgot his voice." People shared memories. His story reached schools, mosques, and homes across the country. The nation that once forgot him was now waking up. But Adil was unaware of it all. His silent life continues far away in a small town. Adil was helping an old man push a broken cart. He didn't know people were looking for him. He didn't know his story was everywhere. He just lived his days simply. Every night he placed his prayer mat on the ground, opened the folded photo of his wife and daughter, and spoke to them like they were still alive. "I helped someone today," he would whisper. "I gave a chill." He walked away from the spotlight, but left behind a light. Major Adil never returned to a normal life, even after people knew the truth, even after the world started calling him a hero again. He stayed the same. Simple clothes, quiet heart, kind eyes. He refused offers for interviews, speeches, or medals. He lived in a small room near an orphanage and helped children study and eat properly. "Fame doesn't heal wounds," he once said, "but helping others softens the pain." He became a father figure to many orphans. They didn't know much about his past, but they loved him for who he was now, kind, humble, always there when someone cried or got hurt. A life well lived. One winter morning, Adil was walking home with a blanket for a sick child. He stopped near a tree, sat down to rest, and looked at the sky. He pulled out the old photo, his wife and daughter. "I'll be with you soon," he whispered, and he closed his eyes. Forever. No pain, no fear, only peace. The nation weeps when news of his death spread. It shook the country. Major Adil, our forgotten hero, has passed away in silence. His photo, the one with the little girl in his arms during the rescue mission, appeared again on every screen, every newspaper, every mobile phone. Thousands gathered for his funeral. Soldiers stood in rows. Journalists, students, teachers, orphans, all were there. The same officers who once ignored him now stood with heads bowed. The children from the orphanage carried flowers. Many of them were crying. One of them said, "He was the only person who cared if I ate." The final salute. As his body was lowered into the ground, a senior officer stood up and saluted. "You didn't just serve your country in uniform, sir. You served it after, in silence, in pain, in love." Then came the 21-gun salute. Not just for the soldier Adil was, but for the human being he became. The letter they found while cleaning his room, a boy found a small box. Inside it, folded neatly, was the letter Adil had written years ago, the one he never sent. They read it at the ceremony. "To the people I served, I never wanted a statue or a street with my name. All I wanted was for you to remember that behind every soldier is a family, a story, and a heart that breaks too. If you must honor me, then feed a hungry child, hug your parents, pray for peace, and never walk past a broken man like he's invisible. Major Adila, new beginning." The government opened a shelter in his name, the Adil Home, a place for forgotten veterans, orphan children, and anyone who needed hope. On its walls, they wrote his words, "Real strength is helping others even when your own heart is broken." Children visit his grave every week, placing small flowers. They sit near the stone and talk to him like he's still listening. And maybe he is. The last scene. Some say on quiet nights you can still feel him walking beside the street children, sitting with the homeless, smiling near the school gates. Not in body, but in spirit, the man who gave everything and asked for nothing.